Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of the Ottawa Senators. Another thing to add to the list is we are giving away a Dylan Cousins jersey thanks to Betway. All you have to do is following us and Betway on X and Instagram. Share the giveaway post, comment sick, and the winner will be announced November 7th. So good luck to everyone. I hope one of you, I'm excited to see who gets the jersey. And yeah, that's a great segue too, because we have an Ottawa legend, not on the ice, but behind the mic in James Duthie coming on the show. So we're really excited for that. And he's an Ottawa Sports Hall of Famer. So I think I'm just going to call him a Hall of Famer throughout the entire episode. So it's going to be a fun one, and hit it, Shane.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot away, score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by James Duthie, who has a certain book out that I have potentially been reading before this show. That's Certified Beauties out there, wherever you get your bookstore books from. So I'm doing the promo for you, James. But thanks so much for taking the time and doing this.
So that's the one thing about when you do a book like this. You do have to promote a lot, and I do think people sometimes get sick of hearing me talk about the book. So I'm sorry, everybody out there. It won't be too much longer. A couple more weeks of promotion, but it is a great book, so I don't mind doing it.
Do you think for you it's almost like the fact that you hate promoting it is almost like it works in reverse, that's why people know it's good, that you almost don't want to share it so much that because you believe in the book?
I never thought about it like that, reverse psychology like that, but maybe. No, I definitely believe in the book, and that's why I do this. But it's just, I just never want to be one of those guys who's constantly saying, buy this, come to my signings, come to my things, listen to my podcast with Alex. You know what I mean? But the book. Once you get me talking about the book, as you will hear, I'm super proud of the book. So that's not a problem. It's just more promoting the book is fine. It's like kind of promoting yourself with it that feels awkward sometimes.
The book is essentially a bunch of short stories. And I'm curious, like, from your vantage point, like, you're a storyteller, like, where did this idea come from for you to write the book?
Yeah, I think it came in the middle of COVID, probably. And I was reading, I can't remember whose biography. I was reading a hockey book. And there was a couple of really good stories in the book. But the rest of the book was, your typical, I was born in a small Canadian town, and about their upbringing. And it's all great. Obviously,
sure,
you want to read those things, and then tells the story of their career, which most of it, and so I kind of said to myself, man, it would be great if you could just cut out all that stuff and just have the 2 or 3 great stories. And so I thought, what if I just went to people and said, I'm not going to tell your life story for the most part, but tell me just an awesome story. Just because, I think the other part of it, Alex, was, during my career, I sit on the panel with, countless ex-players, ex-coaches. I don't know, I've been through probably 50, 75 guys probably in my time hosting hockey at TSN. And because you're doing the intermissions and the pre-games, you get a lot of time to sit and watch the game with these guys. And inevitably they would end up telling great stories. And so I think in the back of my mind, I said, why don't I try to put these in a book someday? And just because in the end, if you're, sitting around with a guy, I've been in situations where I've been at a bar with an ex-coach or a player, and there's other people around, and people just want to hear stories, right? And so that was kind of the idea of Beauties, is it would be like kind of you and me sitting at a bar with whoever, Sidney Crosby, Wayne Gretzky, Brady Tkachuk, whoever would be, and getting that little intimate time with them to tell a pretty awesome story that maybe they hadn't told before.
I'm trying not to be a spoiler for the book, but there's an unbelievable story at the beginning about the Ottawa Senators, specifically Claude Giroux
Yeah.
and Brady Tkachuk. How did you find out about that story in terms of, like, was it word of mouth? Like, how did
No,
that come
I
about?
had no clue. And quite often when you're doing the book, quite often when I arrange to talk to somebody, I have no idea what they're going to tell me, which is kind of a nerve-wracking feeling because if they tell me a crappy story, it's not going to work very well for the book.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I hear about stories and I end up calling that person to see if they'll tell me the story or give me permission to use it in the book. But quite often I'll just pick people that I would like to have in the book. And Brady was an obvious one. And so I think I went to and asked I asked Ian Mendez. I said, could you ask Brady, explain to him the book and see if he'd want to be a part of it. And I think Claude maybe was the other guy on the team that I asked. And it just turned out that Brady's story involved Claude. And so Brady and I arranged to talk when they were on a road trip. I think they were in Carolina, middle of last season. And he just called me. I had no idea what he was going to tell me. And he said, here's a story that I think you might like. And it's funny. That's one of the greatest parts of doing this book. When he finishes the story, I'm just sitting there going, this is exactly why I wrote this book is stories like this. And I don't mind. I told it on a couple of shows that I was on when I was in Ottawa last week. And I think Gary Ock wrote an article about it. So I don't mind telling your listeners the gist of the story. I won't give away. There's a few twists in there that I won't give away, but the quick version is that Brady comes into dressing room one day for practice and all his sticks are taped up, like with 20 rolls of tape, as hockey players do. He thinks right away that it's Giroux. I guess they have a past of picking on each other. So he goes and gets a hacksaw, one of the trainer's saws, and cuts several of Giroux's sticks at a point. So there's somewhere on the shaft, lower part of the shaft, where if you cut a stick and the person wouldn't notice it with their eye, but it will make the stick basically useless and it will snap on contact with a puck or anything. So he does this because they're about to go out for a practice, and he thinks Giroux's a bit of a hothead and he'll snap 3 sticks and then everybody will be laughing and get a good laugh at it, and that's how he'll get even. And bottom line is Brady gets busy with other stuff. Giroux grabs a different stick for practice. Nothing happens. Brady forgets because they have a game next day against the St. Louis Blues. And on a power play in the first period against the Blues, Giroux's sticks start to snap. And Brady realizes, oh my God, he's using these sticks in an NHL game, which is crazy, really. And I know he would have never told me the story had the Sens not won that game handily. But there's all sorts of other plot twists in that story, but that's the gist of what happens. And it is one of my favorite stories in the book. It is the first chapter. That's also just kind of a nod to the fact that I'm from Ottawa, is to put this.
I was gonna say
Sens in the first chapter.
What's it like?
I do what I can, and that's my little fist bump to Ottawa to put them in the first chapter.
As a guy who's been in Toronto for a long time, do you feel like you kind of have to rep Ottawa a little bit and try to kind of put them on the map?
I do. I've always felt that way. I always will, and I don't hesitate to say it. If I don't think the Sens are getting proper coverage on SportsCenter, I tell somebody. I know that we have a reputation, not just us. If there's a lot of Leafs coverage, and you get it, right? Because there's a lot of Leafs fans in this country, and but I try to fight the good fight wherever I can. Trust me. I can have had arguments at times when, maybe not recently because the Sens haven't been very good, but at times when the Sens have, when the Leafs weren't very good and the Sens were better, I've had arguments with producers that their game has to go first in SportsCenter, and I'll always fight that fight.
Is that just maybe tracking back to the book a little bit? Is there any other stories, maybe not even in the book, but just elsewhere that are kind of funny or that stick out from? I know you haven't been like a beat reporter per se, but just knowing about the team that, yeah.
There's a bunch creep in, and again, that's my bias, I think. but I'll give you a quick list. Well, Nick Foligno, who's a guy I've known for a long time, who's really just a guy I've always liked, who's a great character. So his chapter tells a variety of stories, but most of them are from his rookie time in Ottawa when he was learning from Daniel Alfredson. And there was Sean Donovan. There was some real characters on that team. There's an incident where he inadvertently gets smashed and knocks Ron Lowe out, and Ron Lowe wants to kill him. So there's some really, really, really good stories in there about old time Sens days. Zenon Konopka, former 67, former senator, one of the longest chapters in the book. I think it's the second longest chapter in the book because Zenon's such a good storyteller that I decided to tell a real story of a journeyman. And so I put a story in from every one of his stops on his career. And he played for 19 teams. The story, I keep forgetting chapters and stuff titles, but I think the chapter's called 19 teams, 14 broken noses, and 2 bunnies. Zenon was known to have pet bunnies. And Kevin Weeks, the former goalie / ESPN commentator, NHL Network guy, his story is all about Brian Kilrea, trading for him and the intimidation of Brian Kilrea when you first joined the Ottawa 67. So I'm sure there's some other stuff in there I'm missing, but those are a sample of some of the Ottawa content in there.
I guess just like furry fellows are always kind of tied to the Senators because Jake Sanderson, Ridley Gregg had a ferret in their rookie year. So
I just always found it funny that Zenon Konopka, who's one of the toughest guys you'll ever meet, and his nose, just is a map of the world, has pet bunnies. I just find that incredibly humorous.
How much fun? Like I remember the first time we spoke, like on my old show, you mentioned something that I always think about is that what made you such a good storyteller was your ability to write. And I wonder how much fun did you just have writing and specifically finding all these stories throughout like the process of putting the book together?
Yeah. I probably said this to you the last time, but when I took journalism, one of the reasons I did is I loved writing. And then I got right into TV out of school and I kind of stopped writing, period, and didn't for 10 or 15 years. And then when I was back at TSN, I started to get the itch. And so I really like it's long and a lot, probably harder than television is. Television, you just go out and you talk for a couple hours and you come home. And writing, you labor over every word you're going to use. But I do really enjoy it. And it's really fun when you get a story like the Tkachuk Giroux story, the anticipation you have in your head about writing it is really great. I wrote a book a few years ago called The Guy on the Left, which was more stories about my career. And that was a really hard book to write because you're writing about your own stories. And I just found that difficult. But when Brady and Claude Lee put it on a platter for you like that, it's almost like I can't screw it up, right? Just tell the story the way they told it to you. And so in some ways it's easier, but it's also kind of more satisfying. It's really fun when you sit down on the computer and you think about how you're going to, weave this really great story together.
How much fun just was it for you to have the book signing at the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa? Like that must have been kind of a cool moment for you.
It was cool because first of all, you get to see Ottawa's still, I argue, even though there's, I don't know what the population is, 1 million or whatever, it's still kind of a small town, right?
Yeah.
And so, a couple of my guys from high school that I hadn't seen in forever showed up. And then one of my buddies' aunts showed up. And then somebody else who I'd, known from CJOH back before it was CTV Ottawa showed up. And just people you met along the way. Right. And I it's also really, people are always super kind to me in Ottawa and, say things, they're really proud of me and so on, things that, I don't know, things I don't deserve, but they're super. Ottawa, I always tell people, has the nicest people anywhere. And it's kind of validated at something like that, where everyone is just so super nice and nice enough to come out and buy your book and get it signed.
Who at TSN or a colleague or anyone who calls you a Hall of Famer, how much do you get rubbed for that? I feel like that must come up like at least every couple
Oh
weeks.
yeah, yeah. I get ribbed nonstop on the panel. Drager's probably the worst. He rips me nonstop. O-Dog rips me a lot. Mike Johnson, yeah.
Just everyone?
Yeah, like it's also golfing, right? Like if I miss a 3-foot putt, they're like, "Wow, Hall of Famer, really?" But it's
That's
funny
funny.
though. I've used that even before the Ottawa thing. So there's at the I don't know if you've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Have you?
Yeah. Mhm.
So there's a broadcasting wing of the Hockey Hall of Fame where I narrate some. There's a film that I narrate, and then there's some I don't know virtual image of me introducing people to the broadcasting wing. So I one of my cheesy lines. I always tell people I'm in the Hall of Fame anyway. So even before Hockey Hall of Fame, Ottawa Hall of Fame.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you're a Hall of Famer to me. Before I just want to transition a little bit to the Sens because you follow the team
Yeah.
on a daily basis. Just what have you thought about their start to the season without Kachuk and how they've managed to stay afloat without him?
It's a bit of a roller coaster. I thought the ship had been kind of settled until the Chicago game, although Chicago looks a lot better. It's not like they're like they have been the last couple of years, and they're giving a lot of teams fits. But I think that my thought at the beginning, before they sort of ran off those 3 straight wins and had the 7-goal games back to back, was obviously number one, goaltending wasn't good enough. But I think the second thing, big picture, is when you do what they did last year. So you haven't made it in so long, and that entire core has never tasted the playoffs. And so they commit so hard to everything and 200-foot defensive, complete team defensive game. And you do everything you need to do and bust your ass to make the playoffs. I think that naturally human nature is that you might have that little 4 or 5% let down the next year where you think, okay, we've made it. So the Sens, all of us in the media sit there and go, okay, the Sens are now a playoff team. Can they go to the next level? And when you say that, you're assuming they're at this level. And now the only question is, can they get to the next level? But the thing is, you have to remember all the stuff you had to do to get to that level. And if it kind of drops off 4 or 5%, you don't have that desperation that maybe you had last year, then you can have that slide. And that would have been that was my concern for the Sens at the beginning of the season. And I think the way they kind of played in the first few games of the season, like I said, they got it straightened out. Chicago was back-to-back games. Maybe that was a bit of an aberration, and we'll see how it goes from here. But I still think they're fine. I think the Atlantic's going to be insane. I can't get a read on it whatsoever. I think we have the possibility of being in late March and having 6 teams within 6 points of one another, which would be awesome in a way, super stressful if you're a Sens fan or a fan of any of the other teams. But I do think if you go down the possibilities, Buffalo looks better, I think, even though, mixed reviews so far. Detroit looks better. Montreal looks really good. Toronto looks worse. Florida looks like they've played a lot of hockey in the last couple of years. Tampa, I think, is going to be fine, but they got off to a bit of a shaky start, starting to play well now. And you put all that together, Boston, I think, is going to be the bottom. But I just think there could be a meeting in the middle here that is really wild. So it's up to the Sens. It would be nice, it'd be wonderful if the Sens are one of those teams that kind of pull away and lock themselves into whatever position it is, second in the division, and have a nice little 7-point cushion for once. But I'm not sure that's just the way the Atlantic's going to be this year.
It feels like, last year things changed a little bit for the Senators in many respects, but maybe the biggest one was they finally got saves. And this year they're, I think, second last in team save percentage. Like as a guy from Ottawa, what's wrong with Ottawa and goaltenders? Like, why can't they ever get saves? Like, what's happening?
I wrote about this when I started writing again. I was writing a column for the Ottawa Citizen, and I remember writing a piece about that, about just how freakish it was that this city had become this goalie graveyard. And, beyond, I'm going to Ron Tugnut was the guy when they first made the playoffs when I was there, and he was great. Although his numbers probably wouldn't reflect it, but he was clutch. And Lalim, for all of the horrible replays of the bad goals in the worst possible moments, was an awesome goalie for sure. And there's been moments with other guys, but for the most part, it's been tough. Ray Emery had a good run there for a while. Like, there's a lot of good moments I can remember, and like good seasons worked in with a lot of nightmares. And I was with you. I think the first season for a goalie who comes to a new city with a lot of pressure and a big contract is tough. And Ullmark, I thought, okay, he's past that. I still think he's going to end up having a good year this year, but when you're 858 or whatever it is, and I think
on the nose,
Levy's like 830 or something.
Yep,
it's that's horrible. And that was the other thing. Levy was so good last year; it seemed like a no-brainer that he'd be the backup and you could play him 25 games, and because he almost saved their season last year. And that's another thing. No guarantee the guy that you got in short spurts last year is suddenly going to come in and be able to play 25 games and put up a 912 save percentage. And it's certainly been the opposite so far. So I don't know, man. It's a really frustrating thing, because I think if Ullmark was good Ullmark, then that discussion I just had about how close the Atlantic would be, I think that the Sens would be just a locked-in playoff team with a cushion if
for sure.
If they were healthy and he was good. And so those two question marks, health, Brady and everybody else going forward in the goaltending, make it a little more inconclusive for the rest of the year.
How much fun has it been for you as a hockey guy, just to see how Jake Sanderson's evolved as a player, and it seems like really like the rest of the NHL is taking hold and taking notice of how good he is.
Yeah, it's awesome. And one of my other big, sort of soliloquies I use on the Sens often, so apologies if you heard it, but is that, to go to the next level of being a Stanley Cup contender, you have to have a couple of players at least who are great. And I've always thought the Sens core, they have all these really good players, but are any of them like truly great? Like Brady's probably great in what he does, but he doesn't get talked about in the top sort of 15 players in the NHL. And you need that. And if you look at all the Stanley Cup champions, basically in the Cap era, outside of maybe one or two, Carolina in 06 and St. Louis, that all of them have like 2, 3, 4 Hall of Famers on the team. And so who's going to be that with Ottawa? And that's a long-winded way of getting back to Jake Sanderson, saying, I think he's going to be the one who's great. And maybe Stützle, but I think Sanderson has the best chance that in 3 years from now, we're saying he's a great player. And that's a massive compliment.
When you talk about this team, becoming a cup contender, like how close and what do you think they need to do to get into that vicinity, into that conversation?
I don't think it's all that complicated. I think it's just what I said, that a couple of guys become, next level great, and that the goaltending is top 10 in the league, and they stay healthy, and a couple of pieces here and there, a little more scoring, like they're in a position now where they could add a couple of guys. I think that's a lot to ask, but I don't think it's potentially that far away. They could if that stuff happens, they could make a run this year. Like if they're healthy, and Ullmark is like I said, like top 10 in the league, and a couple of guys, like I said, Stützle and Jake Sanderson take that little one next step forward. I think as far as the depth they have, I probably feel better about the team than I have in like a decade, right? Everybody would. That's an obvious statement, but so I think it's really, really close now. It's not. You're not in the phase where I think they're 3 years away from being a cup contender. I think it could happen this year if all those things happen, right?
Yeah, for sure. The one thing that like it's been a hot topic here is just like Dylan Cousins and the Norris trade. And when you look at it, I know it's only been 6-7 months. Like what's kind of your take on the trade and how Cousins has played in Ottawa as well?
Well, I still love the trade, and I hate to say that because I think Josh Norris is an awesome guy, but at a certain point, unfortunately, you're injury prone, and I think he needed probably I guess the Sens more than anything, just you can't have that. And I feel so bad for the guy. I so want him to have a run of 7 healthy years when he gets healthy here. So still think it's a great trade. Cousins, when you trade for a guy like that, everybody looks at the great and the one awesome season he had there. There's a reason Buffalo traded him. He's not a perfect player, right? So I think you're going to get. There's always going to be a bit of a mixed bag with him, but I still think he's a good piece. That, like you say, if they can become that cup contender, I still think he'll be a big piece of it. But I think a really good player who's flawed in some ways, which is what you could say about 85% of the players in the league.
Well, can I get you on record to say the Ottawa Senators are better than the Toronto Maple Leafs, or is that contractually obligated? You can't say that.
I wouldn't know. I have no problem saying it. I just don't know.
It's close.
I would say that right now. I think they're better. I don't know. The Leafs are weird. They're not. I don't know. You probably don't want me to go on a tangent on the Leafs. I think the Marner thing. This market's so funny, right? Everyone was. I would say if you pulled 80 to 85% of the market wanted Marner gone, and I think in some ways I probably could have agreed that it was probably time for a fresh start. But man, they're feeling his loss really, really hard, and I think Matthews is feeling it more than anybody thought he would. They can't find anybody to play with them. They put different guys on there every night. None of it works. They look slow. They get outskated almost every game. So they got some issues now. I think they got enough vets on the team. They'll probably find a way to figure it out. But is Ottawa a better team than Toronto right now? Well, probably, but Ottawa hasn't been great either, right? So, and if the goaltending is better, I'd say for sure. But do they have the potential to be? I would say this: for the first time in a long time, and I think I said this on the season preview show, the rivalry. I think there's a real good chance that either Ottawa passes them in the standings, or that you have a sort of back and forth between the Leafs and the Sens all year long, instead of whatever. It's been a decade of a massive gap, right? I think that gap is closed to nearly nothing at this point.
I'm really hoping, knock on wood, that it's Toronto, Ottawa, Battle of Ontario, round 2 in the first round, and then the winner plays Montreal, or a combination of those types of events, because that'd be
awesome. And it's funny, because I'm an Ottawa guy, a lot of people in Toronto accuse me of being a Sens fan, and the truth is, when you're in this business a long time, you end up cheering for what is the best story, right, for you to cover, really. And so I want the Leafs to go far. I want the Sens to go far. I love it that the Habs are going far. I'd love to, exactly what you said would be awesome, right? Like the Leafs and Sens in the first round, winner play gets the Habs in the next round for the division. That would be absolutely spectacular.
It's funny because people are, just covering a team. They're like, oh, sometimes you're too negative. It's like, the most fun is to cover the Sens in the playoffs. No one wants to cover a team when they're rudderless and 28th in the league. It's not as fun. But
the other thing is, I know Sens fans would take great joy from them making the playoffs and the Leafs not making the playoffs or something. But I truly think it would be more fun for the Sens fans if they got to play the Leafs again in the playoffs and beat them in the playoffs, right? That's. Maybe probably people that say, no, we want them to suffer. We don't want them to make it. I think that I think that's more interesting.
I know there's a lot of baseball talk. I feel it's like the Jays beating the Yankees and the Guerrero, duh, Yankees lose. I think that's what the Sens fans want, except with the Leafs, it's like duh, Leafs lose, right?
That's the other thing that I don't know. I'm sure Jays fever is pretty crazy in Ottawa too. But
it is.
The Leafs have gotten extremely fortunate with the fact that no one is watching them really right now, which isn't unheard of in this market. But it's just so crazy for the Jays that no one is even talking about the Leafs. I have this group chat with all my golf buddies I play with at the course. There's 50 guys on the group chat, and it's just nonstop Jays start to finish every single day, and nobody even mentions the Leafs. And usually all they're talking about is the Leafs. So It's pretty crazy to see. I felt so bad for John Tavares on Wednesday night when that is the worst 500th goal in the history of 500 goals. Not the quality of the goal by him,
No,
but you imagine 500, like, what is it, 49 guys or something like that have done it in history. It's an incredible accomplishment. And to get your 500th in a game where you're losing 6-1, while your entire fan base is watching the Jays get within one win of winning the World Series, is the most ludicrously bad scenario you could possibly imagine. Like, it was nuts. I don't know if it probably mattered to him, but it was just terrible.
I think Sens fans like this just for the Schadenfreude of it all. So I think this has been an interesting. It's been an interesting year, but I do think what you're touching upon is, who would you rather be right now, a Sens fan or a Leafs fan? And I think there's much more hope and optimism, I think, about the Senators team right now. Just honestly, if the goaltending is just not .858, they're probably 7-3-1, and you're at the top of the Atlantic.
I think that's a fair question. That's a fair question than who's better in the long, because again, we don't know what's going to happen this season, right? So there's a lot of reason to think the Leafs will straighten things out and be a playoff team again. But I think when you look from the fan base of Leaf fans is so frustrated right now, and almost to the point of, it's funny. I was over the car dealership today, switching cars, and the guy's usually a diehard Leaf fan, and he's like, "I'm not even watching them. I'm not even watching them right now. Can't stand it. Not even watching them," which is just hilarious.
That's amazing.
A high level of frustration.
I feel like that's the best way to end the show, is just on Leafs torment for Sens fans. But before I let you go, just maybe plug the book before I let you go. And
Certified Beauties, sequel to Road to Beauties. I don't know if you can read all these names on the back, but it's really awesome hockey stories from a lot of really great characters, a lot of really great players. If you get intimidated, a lot of people get intimidated by a 300-page book. I know I do. My wife always jokes that I've written more books than I've read, but no, wait a second. Yes, written more books than I've read.
Yeah, you got it.
It's good, like bathroom reading. The chapters are, for the most part, short. You can read a chapter in 5 or 10 minutes, put it down, pick it up tomorrow, read another chapter. And like I said, the stories, I think, hopefully most people will have heard none of them before, and they're pretty cool stories. So
I love the Crosby one. That's a funny one, the nickname.
It's good. Pretty cool when you get Sid. I still look at the book sometimes and go, "Forward by Sidney Crosby." How the heck did I get Sidney Crosby to write the book? But he's this
2 Hall of Famers.
Dude, there's a couple Hall of Famers hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Well, James, thanks so much for taking the time. I, looked up to you as a kid a lot, so it's really cool to have you on the show and get to know you a little bit. And hopefully it's a lot of fun with the Sens, hopefully pushing for the playoffs. And again, thanks so much for coming on and sharing some cool stories from your book too.
Thanks so much, buddy. It's been fun watching your success too. And
thank you.
By the way, the opening for the pod, that's some slick graphic stuff. So
I know. They asked me before, they're like, "What's your favorite goal, like growing up as a kid?" I'm like, I know which one this is. It's the Alfie goal. So we have that as part of the intro and everything. So it's awesome.
The whole thing's very cool. I'm gonna, if you can allow me for one more plug, only because
sure, go for it.
These things. The end of the month, November 30th, I'm back in Ottawa at Indigo Gloucester at 11 in the morning and Indigo Canada at 3 in the afternoon to do signings. So
cool.
You want to drop by, say hi. Indigo Gloucester at 11, Indigo Canada at 3. That is the 30th, Sunday, the 30th of November. Awesome. Thanks for allowing.
Well, I need to get my book signed, so I'm gonna head over. It's awesome. Great. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, James.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.